mics. And 5, 4, 3.
Happy birthday, Jay. Welcome, everyone, and pull up a seat at the table. It's Lunchtime in Rome. Tonight's episode 194 is entitled Security. Are you the type of person who is always checking the doors to see if they're locked? Do you fear that your partner isn't always telling you the truth? Does your loved one always hold on to money and not want to splurge? Do you get a ton of phone calls and texts asking where you are and where you've been? We'll be talking about the emotional need of security this week at the table. So pull up a seat at the table and join us. First-time listeners can subscribe on your favorite podcast app or watch us live or later at youtube.com/lunchtime in Rome. Visit us at lunchtimeinrome.com, and while there, you can take our relational needs questionnaire. Make sure to follow us on all social media, and it would be great if you gave us a 5-star review. Birthday boy, what specifically is this podcast about?
Being alone is the worst. Good times aren't as good, and bad times are worse when you are all alone. Romans 12:15 says to rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. That is how you keep people from being alone, and what this podcast is all about. We demonstrate that in the first 15 minutes of the podcast, and we talk about it for the rest. So while it may not be 12:15 in Rome, we're treating it like it is.
Lunchtime in Rome.
That was a really good...
That was that was in sync.
Well, yes.
Oh.
That was the Backstreet Boys.
I was going to say, the intro with the description of like, is this you? Is this you? Is this you? I feel like there's a lot of people that are going to be like, that is me. Yeah.
And we switch it halfway through to, or is it your significant other?
Yeah.
Because it may not be you.
Then there's going to be more people like, yeah.
Son of a...
That was good. You can't kick off a podcast without a good.
Actually, you can.
No,
We've encouraged you
One
to.
can.
It's actually impossible, and I'm owning it. And
That's you, Eric.
it doesn't matter.
It's beautiful. We all love it. And expect
So
it.
we've had some core memories. If you've seen Inside Out, they refer to the deep memories, the big moments as core memories, and Chris's daughter Lily Bug, her prize for going to all her musical practices for February, wanted to go bowling with Maggie at Zone 28. And it was so fun. So we went to Zone 28 with Lily Bug after church on Sunday. We had a great time. But there was a moment where Maggie loves bowling itself, just doing it herself, but then she loves watching other people bowl, and she loves cheering them on, and that's just so fun to watch her do that. Like, I could not bowl and just watch her do that and be perfectly content. But then there was a moment where and I always forget what the name of the song is, but it's a Justin Timberlake song, and it's the Dance 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 song,
Right.
But
I got this feeling.
and I think that
is that the
I
title?
think that's the
I'm not
name.
even sure
I got
what
this
that-
feeling, or something like that. Somebody's gonna be rolling their eyes at me right now, but that song came on, and she loves that song.
Aw.
And so we're bowling. That song comes on. She's dancing. Like, it was just this moment that was just so fun, and like you could tell she was just experiencing like pure joy and having fun with family and friends, and Inside Out, like Family Island starts, like ding, 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 like, and I was like, this is great. And I've had a couple moments with her like that this week that are really good and fun, because like she is a great kid, but she's a lot.
Right.
And she's very stubborn. So there's times where I just like, I clench my teeth. But tonight we were in a parking lot waiting for Amy inside the store, and she's starting to write, letters and stuff. And so she has a app on her tablet that she can, blank sheet, like basically like a blank sheet of paper, and she's writing, and she's like, all right, let's spell a word, Daddy. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, T. And she's like, okay. Next, U. Okay. R. Okay. Yeah. D. R. She's like, what's that spell, Daddy? And I was like, turd. And she just like laughs and like thinks it's the funniest thing. And so it's just like fun daddy-daughter moments. It's just like great. And just we just like giggled, like, because it's just fun, and she's just experiencing like this new thing that she can do with with creating letters, and I'm having fun moments with her, like, yeah, you can spell things like this now. It's so just yeah, just good daddy-daughter moments, which is awesome.
It reminds me a lot of an Instagram reel I saw of, and I mean, it's probably 1/4 of Instagram reels, which is like the salty mom, venting about their kids. And she's like, you just have to understand that the number one joy in my life is my kids. And the number one thing that takes the life out of me is my kids. And it's like, and if I could also, it's also like the great TV show Cougar Town, where the very sarcastic and angry Ellie has a 90-second golden moment every day where she's kind. And
90
like,
seconds.
somebody said something like really rude, and they all looked at Ellie, and she didn't say anything, and they're like, "Oh, is this the 90 seconds?" And it's like you just get those moments where you're just
get those
like,
moments.
"It's okay." And it's the whole mental snapshot thing.
Yeah.
you like file that away.
Yeah.
Because man,
Hang on to it. You got to hang on to it.
phew,
So fun.
I'm happy about that. So today is my birthday. I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys
it
heard.
is.
Oh,
And birthdays for me are really insignificant. And so it's been
Why is that? Because I know that about you, but like, why?
Wait, are you being serious?
Oh yeah.
Interesting. Because like you are very high on appreciation. And so I would think that
Yeah, and maybe it's because
And attention.
all I did was get born. I didn't do anything.
yeah, but it's your day. You want to be on. I want to honor you.
Yeah,
Like,
we could flesh that out some more, but no, it's never
interesting.
if we
never-
look at it from an emotional needs perspective,
right.
you have a high need of appreciation and a high need of attention. It's surprising
And
that
respect.
like and respect. Like it's surprising that you don't need like a big birthday. Like it's your day and it's all
No,
about me. But
no.
like then I know you and it's like it's never
No,
about.
I will say this.
Yeah.
I do have a list of those who have not wished me a happy birthday.
Chris just pooped his pants.
It's like it's like
No,
the
I get
Ryan
it.
on The Office with his list.
Oh,
Ryan, like, as people text me, I'm like, all right. But yeah, and I think from a appreciation, well, you're appreciating me for what? I didn't do anything. I'm just here, and so there's that. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't begrudge it. It's sort of it's just another day. It's like I didn't do anything.
this is going to be next week's episode.
Yeah, but
we're
you-
going to finally delve into Jay's.
But you take other people's birthdays as an opportunity to tell them how much you appreciate them.
Because they care.
Yeah.
Rachel, I don't. She doesn't care. Other people, sure, I'll make the
Wait,
biggest
Rachel
deal.
doesn't care about your birthday?
Her birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
So on my birthday, though, I was, people, what are you going to do on your birthday? And I'm like, I'm probably going to get up and take Bella to school and
Be
then
busy
go about my
like I
day.
normally am.
But as I mentioned to last night, I cashed in one of my gift cards that I bought for me from Rachel for Christmas. And I went to the True Float Spa.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
I can't wait to hear about this.
Let me tell you, it's an
Wait,
experience.
is that the like sensory deprivation?
Oh, yeah, I floated.
Oh, I can't wait.
In the
to-
salt water, in the pod.
Absolutely. So I go, and it was cool. It's in this little shopping center in Green Tree. And I wanted to break the guy. Like, he wasn't all like namaste-y, but I was like, bro, you took shop class. You don't know nothing about spas. Like, you just, you didn't go to college.
They
You're
trained
like-
you on how to do
and
this.
he's got his
Yeah.
script, and he sticks to his script and
Yeah.
everything else. But you go in, you fill out the paperwork, you watch the video in the really cool chair, and they tell you what you're going to experience. And so, all that being the case, I will definitely. I mean, I have another gift card, and I will do it again.
Okay.
You can change the lighting in your pod, or you can turn it all the way off. You can
You change
leave
the color
your
of
pod
it?
open. Yeah, you can change the color.
Okay.
You can leave it open, partially closed, or all the way closed.
What'd
So
you do?
Well, I get it. I'm like, look, we're either doing this or we're not doing this. So I
Yeah.
just close the whole
Yeah.
clamshell,
Lights out.
turn the light out, and it's only 10 inches of water. So when you sit
Oh,
down, you're
interesting.
sitting in it. Like I'm on the bottom. But then,
it's
hold
like a
on.
half bath.
But no. So then I lean back. Now, as most of you here know, I don't float
No,
in
you
regular
don't.
water.
Right, yeah.
I mean, the feet go in the body, and I go right down.
Right.
So I lay back, and sure enough, I begin to float.
Yeah.
But it's like I get this like 5-second quasi panicky moment where I'm like, I'm not staying here for an hour. Like, and it's not because it's closed. It's not because it's dark. It's like, and I was like, you shut your mouth. you're going to do this for an hour.
Yeah.
And so I laid back, and you're floating. You could be in 30 feet of water.
And you can get
Right,
out
right.
anytime you want,
Anytime.
right? Yeah.
Anytime.
No, they hold you in there.
Even
Captive.
within there. I mean, I did hear a guy go ka-clunk, and I don't know what that was, like a lever on it. But then there's a button in there that you can push for help and whatever else. Rachel's first words, said, "You think somebody was watching you?" I'm like, "No." She was like, "Were you naked, baby?" I'm like, "No, I put on a bathing suit."
Naked baby.
And they played music for the first 5 minutes. It's all, dystopian.
And yeah.
And it was like a modem going off and babies crying. Special
gonna say, it's
shout
that-
out to Special Forces.
Yeah.
Great show.
It's that new age 90s CD.
And
that
you can
hear
keep
at the
you
middle
can
of the
play
night.
your own music. They have like a an adapter or whatever. But I
That
was
was Zeppelin.
so I let it go for the 5 minutes, and then it turns off, and you just kind of sit there. And
You can't turn it back on, or you can.
I don't know if you
if
can
you
turn
wanted to.
theirs back on, but you can plug in your own music.
So you could keep it going if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're in this chamber. How would you have your phone in there or
That's what
whatever?
I was
It's on the
wondering.
wall outside.
Okay.
So you would just plug it in out there, and it would play through their system.
Okay. Was
Is
the
it-
water perfect?
Yeah. What's the
Temperature wise,
temperature?
oh, it was the same temperature as the room.
Okay.
So you're fine. And I start off with my hands.
Well, was it warm in the room, or was it like
It was warm.
Okay.
Everything was warm.
hot tub warm, or
No,
room
just-
temperature warm?
Room temperature plus.
Okay, gotcha.
And you have to shower before you go in, and you have to put in your plugs, which they give you, which was a little weird, but whatever. And so I started out with my hands to my side, and it was funny because I was like, "Oh man, I feel like I'm not resting my neck; that I'm rigid, And then I was like, "Well, wait a minute. It does say it supports your whole body, and I am just, and my neck. I jacked my neck up a couple weeks ago, so I was like, all right, well, that makes sense. Like it's working on that a little bit, fine." And I'm like, I'm not right. And like my shoulders were too high up out of the water with my hands to the side. So I just put them over my head. And they even in the video, they show you the different positions that work best. So I just put my hands over my chest, and I was like, oh, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just calm. And
Yeah.
and you're working on your breathing. They tell you to do the 4-7-8, which is 4 inhale, hold for 7, exhale for 8, which I had done that. But then I was just doing my nose, which was weird because I can never breathe out of both sides of my nose, but I could. And I know
Salt water.
I fell asleep.
Sometimes salt water helps with that.
I fell asleep several times.
Oh, really?
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
and
third
then-
sleep.
And then
Salty, sir.
I just had this epiphany's too strong, but a very sweet, clear feeling. I'll just say it was about Rachel. Like it overwhelmed me with just how much I love her. And it wasn't the least bit romantic. It was just this really weird. And I said to her, I'm only going to tell you this, and maybe the guys, maybe the table. I don't know. But I feel like if I stop short and just say I had this really intimate, whatever, it was so pure. It was just like this clear thought. And it was just for who she is, not what she is, not how she relates to me. And it was cool. And then I started, I've been in here a while, and so they tell you that the music comes back on for the last 5 minutes. And
Okay.
and then the water cycles. So if you're asleep, that's going to wake you up. And so I'm laying there, and I was like, and I had to get Bella after school, and I was supposed to be done at 1:45. And I was like, oh, the clock says 2:00. And then in my head, I'm like, there's no clock in here. You are asleep again. And so then I woke up, and then I just sort of and then I put my hands above my head in the I surrender position, as they call it. And that, my shoulders were like, that's what I'm talking about. It was almost exhilarating.
Yeah.
And then I played with the walls, if you push yourself, how far you go to one side. And then I saw the lights starting to come back on and the music was on. So I was like,
You're like, oh, I just figured out a
I was
game.
spinning around a little bit, and it literally felt like I was in space.
Yeah.
And if you opened your eyes in the middle of it with the lights off and everything else, I was like, oh, that's dark.
Yeah.
That's dark. So you get out, there's a shower right in your room, and it's a gorgeous shower, super hot. Take care of that. And then on the way home, which of course I was in traffic and late to pick up Bella,
Oh, Green Tree.
my
I
ear
mean,
was a little bit, I was
Yeah.
Green Tree traffic into Squirrel Hill traffic.
worst.
But I was just messing with my ear, and in one of the little crevices, I just brought out a bucket of salt.
Yeah.
Because I didn't
Yeah.
wash.
Sure.
you know.
Right. Yeah.
So I will definitely do it again. They have they have memberships that I could have put my gift card towards, but any
But it's
membership
Green
that
Tree.
they have, it is Green Tree.
It's far.
But they have, there's a membership that's 2 or 3, you can have 3 visits a month, but you can also take people as the visits. So like I could take the two of you, and myself would be a visit.
Oh, that's cool.
But on Tuesdays, members float free, so you also get every Tuesday for free.
Wow.
It's also $110 a month, but
That's a bit much.
it's a bit much. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'll definitely go back.
How much is it per session?
It depends. Like I paid $85 and I got 2. It was buy one get one. But like right now, I think it's $65.
I feel like the buy one get one. It's not bad.
And they have an oxygen bar afterwards, and they have tea and water if you want it. And I was like, I am not sticking that up my nose, and I got to go get my daughter. So a little bit longer than normal, but it was really a cool experience.
It is cool.
That
I
sounds
really think
fascinating.
Rachel could do it. The first couple minutes, though, was just like, what am I going to do for an hour?
Right.
I would love to go back if I was really tired or really not tired, because I was kind of in the middle. And so I dozed off a couple times, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's helpful.
I like the idea of like how it made you feel, like, because I know you've had shoulder issues, the way your shoulders are,
yeah.
and the recent neck thing.
Oh,
That's exciting.
When I put my hands above my head, I was like, oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
It was just like, that is what I'm talking.
Interesting.
Before hearing you tell this story, I never would have gone to one of these, and now I want to go. That sounds
they
great.
They got a bunch. There's 2 hallways and 4 in each hallway, so they must have 8.
Yeah.
So just make it a big party day.
Eight's a
Can't
good
wait to
number.
go. Sounds great. I've always wanted to do like a sensory deprivation or something like that.
It's-
Yeah.
Because the light stays on while the music's on in the first 5 minutes, but my thing was closed, so I still had a stripe of light. And then after a while, like I said, I opened my eyes and I was like, ooh, that's the same as my eyes closed. Dark, dark.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Like under
Yeah.
the bed dark.
That's cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
I don't have anything quite as cool, but I do have some good updates. First of all, okay, so my boy Ben, he was on with you guys last week.
TV star.
Oh, well, that too. Yeah, but I was so glad when I couldn't be here with you guys last week that he was home for spring break and or whatever they call it, winter break, whatever they're doing.
Love some Benny Boo.
It was great seeing him. I love spring break,
Love
Ben. I do. I like spring break,
It was
Ben.
so nice having him home for a week. And then I take him back to school Sunday. Sunday is also NCAA selection Sunday for the NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness. And of course, we all know, but some of you guys might not out there, that Pitt had to do a play-in game. So they had to play early in Dayton, Ohio against Mississippi State. So I take him back to school Sunday night. Monday, he's on a plane heading to Dayton with the basketball team, and he's in the pep band and everything. So they're all heading that way. And just so happy for him that he gets to experience this stuff. And I think I was telling you guys yesterday that on the plane, they set the pep band in the very back of the plane. They were next to the dance team. Of course, the basketball team gets to sit up front in first class. Well, the plane was in some way unbalanced, so they came to the back and asked for some volunteers to go sit up front. Ben volunteered, ended up in first class. He said it was just the biggest, cushiest seats, and he got to watch the coaches have their little meeting about the upcoming game, and he had a great time. And of course, Pitt ended up winning by 1 point last night, so that was cool too.
I just love Ben walking past everybody.
I love picturing Ben in a first class seat. Can you imagine how much more room is in that seat? Because Ben's not a big guy.
Like a toddler in Santa Claus's chair without Santa Claus.
Yes.
And then we saw
awesome.
him on TV a couple times last night when
Did you talk to him?
Text, yes,
Ah.
yeah, he had a great time,
So fun.
and
So where are they headed to next? Do we
they
know?
go to Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I forget who they play.
Iowa State.
There you go. Yeah. So they're an 11 seed.
Cyclones.
They're playing a 6 seed.
Why
they're
is
the underdog.
Iowa State known as the Cyclones? Not a lot of cyclones in Iowa.
Yeah, it's pretty flat
Yeah.
out there.
Cyclones are in the ocean in Iowa.
I thought it was
Just
just
as
another
fun.
name for a
Tornado.
Cyclone?
Yeah.
You're thinking of a typhoon.
Yeah.
I too was thinking that though.
Yeah.
What? Keep going.
Cyclone is tornado.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's
All right.
Twister.
Go
Oh,
with
well, there's
that.
none of them in Iowa.
It's pretty flat out there.
Plains of Iowa.
I kid.
Anyway,
Ooh, they are the Cyclones.
So that was, that's the update on Ben. And then Lily's just doing her thing. I don't really have an update on her. But
my boy
Amy,
with Megan.
who, of course, has been coming out of the whole radiation thing. So the big thing with her has been this pill she has to take 5 years. It's a hormone pill.
And it was 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. And it's been driving her, well, I was going to say crazy, but honestly, it's been driving her all over the place. Like it's a roller coaster of...
Like a cyclone?
Yeah. Oh, it's like a cyclone. So
I will tell you about a cyclone. Tornadoes form from cold air and air from the tropics and are smaller, causing less damage. Cyclones form from tropical air rising from the oceans.
Yes.
And are larger, causing
water
significant
spouts.
damage, especially in the South Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. So
Near Iowa.
Why Iowa?
I don't know.
All the ponds.
it can't be known. But anyway, long story short, today, Amy's update was she on her way home from school. She said, "This is the first day I have felt like myself." So that. Listen,
That's
does
all
that
you're
mean
asking for.
tomorrow? Does that mean it's the beginning
Right.
of...
Is it all going to come crashing
Right.
down again?
She's probably still on that roller coaster, but
Well,
today was a good day.
Have they? And that's awesome. I am so glad because you guys have needed a great day. But have they said like, is it going to be up and down for the next 5 years, or will it like level out?
I don't have that information. I can't imagine
I want to find that out.
that it's going to be... I can't imagine...
It's a long 5 years, buddy. That's a lot.
I mean, if you're gonna go for a 100-yard sprint or an ultra marathon, you might want to know which one you're training for.
Here's my educated guess, though, is that it's... Because they told us that it basically it mimics menopause. So there's going to be the hot flashes. There's going to be the mood swings and the what I don't know, whatever else
careful.
goes with that. So, but that doesn't last for 5 years. I think it's more like her body has to like adjust to the new hormone levels, and that's what's happening right now.
I will say this: I know of other women who have taken and are taking that medication, who are of far greater volatility emotionally than Amy is. And they are not as... It hasn't lasted that long. Like,
Okay.
They find a center, kind of. They find
yeah, but their
balance.
center's off.
Sure.
Like, they're a lot to deal with anyhow.
Sure.
But now they're also closer to menopause. So you could be getting the double whammy. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I just hope it continues. I hope tomorrow's as good as today.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just a little
What's tomorrow? Thursday.
ray of sunshine in the middle of the week. It's nice.
That's
Just a
great.
little blip.
Celebrate that.
But we're good. Other than that, I mean, we're just it's great to be out of the whole radiation thing. It's great to like know that she is cancer free, and even though the pill that she's on just sucks, it's still like it's not hurting her. It is helping her, and it's
I hate it all, though.
yeah. I mean, it's no fun.
I mean, it's better than dying. Sure.
Who's to say?
It's 50.
Oh, that was dark. I'm sorry.
So, I've started meal planning at our house. Lex is hitting it real hard with both work. She got not a promotion. She got a raise and a bonus, which was really nice.
I like raises with bonuses.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
been doing very well, and she's also going to school full time in the evening. She's working, doing it from home, but and she's just
Wow. Easy.
only 2 classes a semester. I mean, but so all the way around, she's doing well. But we came to a spot where it's like, well, what, how can we bring more balance? Because she also does all the stuff with the kids. A lot of the scheduling and our finances and stuff like. So she carries a lot. So we got to a point where it's like, how can we even things out a little bit more? And so I started doing the meal planning and doing the meals at night. So that's been fun to have a plan and then go out shopping and get everything you need. But there's one meal that we've been doing. It's Parmesan beef tips, and you do it. Oh, it's so good, man! And it's really simple. You buy like a cut of, beef, like a roast or something, cut it up, throw it in the crock pot, and it's heavy whipping cream and bone broth and salt. And then you just let it, and fresh Parmesan cheese, like a cup of fresh Parmesan cheese that you grate. You throw that stuff in the crock pot in the morning, and it's such a fantastic meal.
It sounds like it would end up being like a fondue sort of thing in there. Is that what that like?
It doesn't thicken up quite that much.
Okay.
It's more of like an au jus.
I'm like, can you sous vide that?
Well,
That's where my mind went, like with heavy cream and stuff. Like,
I mean, I guess you could, but the crock pot's great. It was actually out of a carnivore cookbook, so it's all carnivore.
What cut of beef? I wasn't listening.
I mean, I just
matter.
go to Aldi and
Something roasty.
grab so that's been something that's really been good. You can do noodles with it, or like a good piece of white bread and butter, like all that's
That's
stuff.
carnivore at that part.
Well, it's not, but
yeah,
it
sounds so good.
It's-
Yeah.
Crunchy,
Yeah.
crusty bread even.
Soak it all in.
So, I mean, I got other stuff going on, but we can move on.
All right. I wanted to add one other thing, though. Michelle Gonzalez, who sits at the table with us.
Yeah.
She wished me a happy birthday today and said, so grateful for our 30-year friendship.
Wow.
And I just looked at it and I was like, well, that's not right. And I did
You're
math
like,
and I was like,
I'm more than 30.
wow. Like, I can't, that's just,
That's wild.
yeah.
Like, that's something my parents would say.
And my mother does say that. But you know what? I'm cool with that. And you said, live, die, whatever.
Whatever.
Chris, you said that. Up is down. Who cares? Whatever. Because I don't really have a high need for security. We talked about my needs. And we've been going over all of the top 10 emotional needs. And we've taken a break from doing what we're calling our evergreens or our deep dives into them. And the reason why we do them is if it is one of your highest emotional needs, which you can find out what yours are by going to lunchtimeinrome.com and taking our relational needs questionnaire, is you get to understand a little bit more about yourself, why you are the way you are, how you can get your needs met without stealing them. But maybe as important, if not more, is when you have somebody in your life who has an emotional need, like security, that you don't have a high need of. Mm-hmm. It is one of those reasons why you have the same fight over and over and over again, separated only by time. The details change, but it's the same fight. Why? Because they have a need that you don't. So they value certain things that you don't. And when we go through this, you'll become to an understanding of how they are, why they are the way they are, and how they operate. So tonight we're doing the emotional need of security. And it's interesting, right off the jump, if you look at the Oxford definition of security.
The state of being free from danger or threat. The state of being free from danger or threat.
That's it.
Fair enough.
It's pretty short.
It is pretty simple.
Yeah.
But I disagree.
Right.
It's clinical. It's not very nuanced.
Well, and when you started talking, Jay, about how emotional security, my mind goes to acceptance because I have a high need of acceptance.
Right.
So if I've done something wrong, I need to know that like we're okay or we're gonna be okay. And I feel like the sense of like it's funny because like I don't have a high need of security, but I do have that high need of like emotional security of like, are we okay? You know what I mean?
Right. And this does apply, as we'll find out in a second, to both relational and physical security.
But what do you mean? Yeah.
My problem with it is you can be secure in the midst of a threat. Mm-hmm. This world is not a safe world.
Right.
And you can live in a really dangerous part of town. And that's like Ben Jackson's wife, who, crud, I am forgetting her name at this point. Sierra.
I don't know why.
Of all the names.
I just had a conversation with Joe at Aldi on Sunday. And
I saw him today, by the way, at
Yeah.
Aldi. He might be there more than me.
and
somehow Sierra came up.
Saw him 4 times. Because
The point is, she says, I am not the least bit safe. She goes, but I'm comfortable. So she doesn't have a high need for security because she is secure. She says, I live in downtown New York City. I'm not the least bit safe.
Right.
There is always a threat for violence.
But she doesn't feel threatened.
But she does not feel threatened.
Or
So
in
there is
danger.
danger. There is threat.
Right.
So the security is in having peace within the storm, having peace within the turmoil.
The Oxford definition is probably also physical security, right? So like there has to be
You put a wall up around your house.
It was interesting. I look up a bunch of different definitions, and of course, security with the Silicon Valley Bank and banking securities came up, and I was like, we're not going there.
Right.
But our definition,
Ensuring harmony in life and relationships. This is both in regards to physical and emotional security.
so yeah, ensuring harmony in life and in relationships. Harmony, that it's going to be okay. Everything's fine. We're going to make sure that, this could be a good time. This could be a bad time. We're going to have money. We're not going to have money, but we're going to be okay. Ensuring that, having secure, being secure in that we're going to be okay. We visited Mercer Harris College this week with Bella and had a great conversation with a professor in their psychology department. And he was one of those guys you just want to sit and talk to all night long. And he asked Bella, he goes, Bella, tell me this. What would 100-year-old Bella tell 18-year-old Bella? And of course, she had no answer. And he goes, let's make it easier for you. What would 18-year-old Bella, looking back 4 years, tell 14-year-old Bella? And she was like, well, and she kind of brought up COVID stuff and whatever else. And he goes, wouldn't you just say to her, it's going to be okay? Because whether it's 18-year-old Bella or 100-year-old Bella, looking backwards, whatever it is, it's going to be okay. And so to me, that's sort of security that, what, no matter what, it's going to be
Yes.
Rachel, of course, wants him to be her uncle.
Yeah.
But, and now we're going to really break some ground. If you've been with us on our evergreens, we're going to crack the code.
beautiful. Just like every other, it is beautiful. I love the beautiful simplicity of this. That it's what causes it. It's the same for every emotional need, right? So you have it met constantly as a child. That's the first one,
So you're used to it.
right?
Or not having it met as a child.
You've never had it, and you desperately want it.
Yeah.
Experiencing relationship trauma, such as being abandoned as a child.
So imagine what so many, like we have kids in the school, Chris, I can't imagine what you see on a daily basis. Yes, I'm no longer the coach at the high school, but I still go up and I help out every once in a while. And we just hear stories of these kids. I mean, one, I'm not going to go into it, but it just affects them. There's so much trauma. And back to Dr. Tobin's point to Bella, when you think of a 12-year-old child, 3 years of their life has been COVID, post-COVID. So that's a quarter of their life. That's
wild.
traumatic in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Let
wild.
alone traumatic being abandoned as a child, being, cheated on as an adult. Having trauma within relationships is going to cause you a greater need for security. If dad was never around, if mom and dad fought all the time, if every girlfriend you've ever had cheated on you or left you, gosh, of course you're going to have a high need for security.
Well, I mean, your brain starts to get rewired at that point in time, and you're back in it every time you're in a new situation.
And
It's interesting how like some people, though, speaking of rewiring their brain, like they're and I don't think this takes away their need for security, but I can see people saying, oh, I was hurt this way by this person, hurt that way by that person. They start to shut down and be like, I don't need security from anybody. And they're almost securing themselves from relationships
pretty much.
in an unhealthy way.
Oh, yeah. And we'll get to that.
Okay.
I do have a question about number 3 here on this list of experiencing relationship trauma. Getting ghosted by friends. Now, it's interesting to me because, again, I don't have a high need of security, but I do have a high need of belonging, which I feel like is kind of the same thing in that statement, like getting ghosted by friends. Like that would be hurtful to me by
Your need for belonging,
Right.
not security.
Oh,
Right.
I don't belong to this circle anymore. Or I
Right.
don't belong to this relationship anymore.
right.
Well, and it can be,
It could be both, I guess.
well, just like you guys talking about with my birthday, like you have a high need for appreciation, a high need for respect. Like
Yeah.
they overlap.
yeah,
But it could be like, imagine you only ever have one friend. Well, there's no real belonging in that. It's just I have a friend. Okay, well, if that friend all of a sudden doesn't answer your phone calls anymore, doesn't want to hang out with you anymore, if you get ghosted by a friend, that, if you have a high need for belonging, yeah, it might tinge It might hurt a little bit.
Might hurt a little bit more. Yeah.
But if you're just like, wow, I can never keep a friend. And we've seen those friends, they're the ones that are always calling you 24 times, before you call them back once. And they're like, they're drowning,
Yeah.
because they're so scared they're going to lose another friend.
Mm.
Always being dropped by significant others.
And same thing.
Does that mean like you're the one that gets broken up with?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to cause you to have a high need for security. I would think so.
Right, because you're in a relationship and you're constantly like, okay,
when's the shoe gonna drop?
Yes, exactly. When's
Right.
the shoe going to drop? When am I going to do something that causes them to leave?
And those are all pretty much dealing with emotions, whereas physical things.
Experiencing breaches in safety and trust. And I actually read that as beaches, and then I had to reread
You're
that.
like, oh, beaches.
right.
Experiencing breaches in safety and trust, something like assault, break-ins, loss of property, or I was thinking also like an automobile accident. Those are kind of things that are going to, they're physical things that happen that are
Well, you
going.
think about that, experiencing a breach in safety or trust. When somebody like crosses the center line and hits you, which I've had happen, like that's not supposed to happen.
Right.
Like you think in all of these, that's not supposed to happen. Right. So I was once secure, and now I'm insecure. And this goes to sort of the thing that I've talked to Joe and Bella about for years, having lost a brother to cancer. And I said to them, what you've learned is that everything's on the table. I remember a week after Trey died, I went into Bella's room and she was crying. So mind you, at this point in time, 6, 8, she's 8 years old. She's crying and she goes, I'm afraid that you and mommy are going to die. And all I wanted to say was, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that one's out the window.
Not a
I was
promise.
like,
That's
really?
not a promise.
Because that
Yeah.
6-year-old just died. So, but the beauty of it is we worked hard at it. And, anything can happen. But we also learned that you can be okay. Some people don't learn that you can be okay. And so then they live in fear. And I said that to them. I said, look, you guys have 2 choices. You can realize the worst in life can come your way. And things that aren't supposed to happen can happen, and you can be okay, or you can live in fear with a high need for security for the rest of your life. And to whatever degree, neither one of them has a super high need for security-ish.
Yeah. I always cringe in like movies or TV shows where somebody makes one of those promises, like they're about to go to war and they're like, I promise you I'll be back. It's like, come on.
Well, if it's in a movie, it's like that guy's not coming back.
You're toast.
So let's talk about how it's met. Consistency of upbringing within parenting styles.
Oh, yeah, right. Because when the kid knows, even subconsciously, what to expect, they innately have a sense of security.
And I think it could also be, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking about like the parents that maybe play good cop, bad cop, or the parents that they're not united in how they're going to raise that kid, and the kid knows, well, if I go to mommy in this situation, I can get this thing from both of them. And then daddy gets all ballistic because the kid just used mommy. So that's how I read that one.
I don't know who I was talking to recently, but somebody it was disjointed, it was a husband and wife that were not on the same page. And, and as highly variable as life has gotten, I'll go downstairs and I'll talk to Rachel and I'm like, man, we're okay, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, good. Because I can't fathom that. Like, and so then think of the volatility that kid is dealing with because they're going to go, it was kind of my fault that I did that. And along those same lines is just having stability at home and having there be peace, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of peace.
It's statistically one of the greatest
Barometers
of a healthy adult. Like there's so many things that happen when the stability isn't at home, and we can try to cover them up in a lot of different ways and make excuses. But statistically speaking, having a stable home place, even if it's not like the nuclear family or something like that, at least if there's some stability there, that kid is going to feel much more secure as they walk out the door and face life.
Man, my mind goes to when we went and saw that FBI guy.
Yep.
And he talked about like when we were growing up, bullying happened at school, happened on the school bus, but then when you got off the school bus and you went home, that was like, sanctuary.
Right.
you couldn't be harmed.
Right.
And now he's
There's
like,
no safe place.
there's now that there's phones, like it all follows you home. So like even when you're in your own home, there's that lack of sense of security. Like that just kind of like blew my mind of like, man, how many kids are growing up more anxious, more scared, more waiting for that shoe to drop, like we talked before, like when my friend's gonna turn on me, you know, because of that constant bereavement of all that. Like that's
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot recently about the concept of home. I was over the weekend we watched 2 movies, Interstellar and Inception. And the main theme about them both,
light movies.
yeah, but the main theme about both of them is getting home. Getting home to this person, and to your point about you used to be able to come home. Home, there was a safe harbor, there was a safe haven. And not only because there's not stability in more homes now, but like you said, there's also not that separation of, all right, I was bullied all day, I'm getting off the bus.
Right.
I won't be bullied at home.
Right.
So you have the loss of stability in your parental figures or that portion, and then you have this seeping in of a world that doesn't stop.
Right. It's relentless.
And so
in a bad way.
yeah, and so many people are going to be doomed to wander through life with no sense of what home is like. Like we know people that they grew up in really crappy homes. They don't know what home's like, and that home carries a huge weight of security, or a huge opportunity for security for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we're going to have an entire generation of people that really have never gone home. You know what I mean?
I know this statistic doesn't exist, but I'd be really curious to see.
50% of time statistics don't exist.
Interesting.
You can count on that.
But like, if the amount of people or percentage of people that have a higher need of security is on the rise, that would be a really. I mean, I think. Colloquially, or is that the right word? No, but
No. If you're saying yins are like that, then yes, that would be a colloquialism.
nah, I'm sorry.
You're just saying locally.
No, not even. I'm just trying to say that we can sit here and say, just because we understand
Anecdotally?
something,
Anecdotally.
That's what I said.
that it's
Uses
got to
your
be the
ancestors,
case, right?
too.
Like it's got to be the case that the
One
need-
would think.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and again, I think when you look at what we've just come through over the past 3 years, to me, the need for security drove the madness that we witnessed over the. So I would say, is it on the rise? Hell yeah, it's gone through the roof.
We put
Right.
gas on it.
We threw gas on it, and all
Yeah. Wow.
this entire demographic of people that lean towards, hey, I'm going to choose security over something else. They were already in that state, and now that's just been ramped up to 11,
Yeah.
and we've spawned an entire
11.
generation that is not that like we're talking about, especially this this age of kids. That's
fires.
embedded in them forever.
Yeah.
One thing I heard in another podcast recently talking about how there's kind of 3 stages of crime / trauma, whatever else, that there's what happens in the foundation of a child and then, or a society. Then there's sort of the middle ground, and then there's the end times. And so imagine a kid is raised in trauma. Now they're not doing well in school. They're not, they're starting to get into little trouble and everything else. And then they go on to commit big crimes later in life. And the problem is our government and everything else focuses on the middle stage. Oh, the schools are failing. We need to do more of this. We need to put
Right.
more money in the schools. And, we've got to do this. We've got to do that. And they ignore the trauma in the very beginning of their
Right.
lives. And we don't say, hey, how can we help families? How can we take care of families so that kids are raised with a much more stable upbringing?
It is a constant discussion among teachers, and not because we want to pass the buck, but because again, like we're just aware of all the things that kids walk into our schools with, like all the
Bringing in
baggage,
with
all
them.
the all the things that make it harder to learn, harder to socialize, harder to it's just
Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of constant, the third one on the list here is constant and consistent meeting of and communication of desired needs.
Yeah. So whatever someone's needs are, if you're getting those needs met and you're able to say that this is what I need, and then somebody says, oh, and then they meet that need, even if it's not an emotional need, that if you go through life and you need food, you need water, you need shelter, and that keeps getting provided for you, yeah, guess what? We're going to meet that need for security. And that's why it may not be a hurt and may not end up being that high.
Would you guys say that security is unique in that way, that if another emotional need isn't met, it could affect your security? Is there any other thing? I mean, I know we say that they overlap, like you know what I'm saying?
No, I
though,
see
but
what
this-
you're saying.
Yeah.
That if you have a need for appreciation and it isn't met, then you need appreciation, but you also might need security.
Well, or like to Eric's case, his belonging, if that's continually taken away from him and not healed, I think that you probably would grab it, because that's a very relational thing. I mean,
Yeah.
not saying the other ones aren't, but like that specific
No,
one.
and same with acceptance. Like if I did something wrong and it's not resolved,
Yeah.
like then I'm gonna have even more fear and more a sense of like emotional security of like, if I do something wrong again, like I'm gonna be more worried from a security perspective about my need of acceptance, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Chris, I would agree with you, but I would also say, or to answer your question, I would say respect as well. Because
Yeah.
if you don't appreciate me, you don't respect me.
That's
If you
a
don't
good one.
support me, you don't respect me. If you're, if you're not including me in your group, you don't. So I think those two probably overlap the most out of the rest of them.
Cool.
Again, how is the need for security met? Conflicts are resolved in a productive manner.
That is something that I just think is so underrated in parenting. Just in modeling that between a mother and a father, not just between parent and child,
Right.
but that they watch and they observe.
Setting an example, yeah.
We have done that. It's funny with Rachel and I. We maybe have not done that.
You're like, all right, kids, get in here. You're gonna watch mommy and daddy resolve this conflict.
Well, because there's times where she and I will disagree, and Joe, as a grown 20-year-old boy, will say like, "Stop fighting," and I'm like, "We're just
not going at it.
disagreeing.
Yeah.
Like, we're not even."
We'll go over to the
like,
neighbor's
they've-
house if you want to see a
Well, like,
fight.
they've never heard me raise my voice to her.
Right.
They're numb to Rachel raising her voice to me. No, but I don't think we've modeled it enough when it comes right down to it. Now,
Yeah.
I've been very purposeful, Brian. I know you are. With your kids, it's sort of, for lack of a better term, conflict resolution. Like, here, you really screwed up, or I screwed up, whatever else. I think that's important, and people don't know how to do it in their own relationship, so they're not modeling it
Right.
in front of their kids so much.
That'd be a whole nother show. The fifth one on here is fear or threats are encountered without catastrophic results.
When you got the nervous Nelly mama and anything that goes wrong, she goes to 1,000. Ugh, what do you think they're raising?
That's the quintessential example of that for me is your toddler falls down, and do you respond with, helping them up and saying, "Oh, it's
Or gasping.
you're going to be okay," or do you are like, "Oh my goodness," and then the kid learns that, well, something terrible has happened, and now it's time to overreact.
Or I get lots of attention. You know what I mean? It may not just be that, but yeah, there's just too much volatility involved in that. So, what are the results? Whenever we have an emotional need not met, there's a negative consequence. And we're going to go into the categories later as far as like anger, fear, guilt, self-condemnation. But typical things that come from, okay, I have a high need for security. And again, it's emotional, but it's also physical. So if it's not being met, what are you going to experience?
Anxiety. That makes sense.
Sure. Manic behavior.
Obsessive behavior.
What would that look like?
Manic behavior?
Yeah.
In regards to security.
Yeah.
I envision something on the lines of like, because the next one is obsessive behavior, but like, being always like, is the door locked?
From a physical perspective.
From a physical perspective, yeah. Like,
Did you
always,
turn the iron off?
Right. Like, I forgot to close this door, or I forgot to lock the door.
And think of the
on my way
relationship.
out.
They're driving away.
Yeah.
The wife goes, I don't know if I turned my curling iron off. And the husband goes, what? Yes, you did. And even if you didn't, it's
We
just
have
sitting on your
insurance.
dresser. It's fine.
Yeah. I would say something we alluded to in the opening, like manic behavior, 35 texts or 25 texts, and look, I just texted you like 2 minutes ago. Give me a chance to do what I'm going to do. I don't need 35 texts from you in these last 2 minutes,
Or checking your phone, like one spouse checks the other's phone.
like physically goes into the phone.
Because who's he texting?
And that'd be more like obsessive, I would
Right.
think.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm combining the
Sure,
manic
sure.
and obsessive.
It could be
Checking the
both.
bank account every time, every minute, writing down. Some people still like balance their checkbooks. Come on. I mean, what are we talking about here? That can't be done. But that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow. People really do all that stuff.
They do. It's
do.
incredible.
Huh.
Fourth on the list is shame.
I love the fact that you read that. Like, shame.
Well, that's an interesting one. So you don't have security, or you feel a lack of security, and so you feel shame, like
By
you
not
don't.
being brave enough? Like,
No, by just like, I'm the one that's always making us check. I'm the one that's
Ooh.
because your need isn't met. You start feeling like I'm the
Okay.
only one
that
that's
goes
like
into
this.
like some guilt, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that I'm just.
Interesting.
Why is it that I don't? Why am I the only one
Yeah.
who's always
Why do you
scared?
never worry about this?
Brian's having a great moment. He's like, I've never experienced shame at all
no,
in the first place.
like some of these, like, I mean, I know it happens to
Like
people.
cognitively, you can understand that.
I
Yeah.
can get there, but
And we're getting into that next.
how are we hurt by not receiving it? You have a loan?
They just end up feeling alone.
Oh, you feel alone,
It goes with
yeah.
the shame. I mean, you're just like, nobody understands me. Nobody cares about me. Nobody's, making sure I'm okay. And that goes back to the shame. Like when you have a higher need than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then it isn't met. Like it's one thing if you know you have a need and somebody meets it, you're like, oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. I know. But then they don't meet it. So you're just like, "Ugh, I am such a loser.
And that is like, it's just like a good, like general, like topic
True.
of every single emotional need. Like you may not understand it, but if you can cognitively understand it and like understand your own emotional needs, you can get an idea of like, okay, well, they have a high sense of security. I have a high sense of this. They would not understand why I have a high sense of this, but I can get behind that. That's just a big thing. When you have that click in your head, like I feel like it's a big moment.
I feel like I know we're going to get down to the how does it work out for your guilt. So I feel like as we're talking about shame and feeling alone, I feel like that would speak to self-condemnation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
So whenever you don't have an emotional need met, very often what you're supposed to do is be open, honest, and vulnerable and express and equip the people to meet that need. But very often what happens is you try to steal that need. You have a high need for affection. You start playing rough with somebody, give them a hug, you do whatever. Chris is laughing. Why is Chris laughing?
That's just no. I'm sorry. It just sounded funny. I need affection. Let's play rough. I don't know.
That's true.
It's absolutely, but it
Yeah.
just struck me as it sounds funny. Sorry,
He's
sorry
going to
that
go
I-
home to Amy tonight. How about some rough play, dear? She slaps you across the face. You're like, oh, all right.
Maybe not.
Not
Wasn't
what
what
I
I
had in
was-
mind, but I will say too, Jay, when we went over this initially, or in the early going about stealing, it's unmet or it's being stolen from. Like I do want to
No,
reiterate,
taken from you. As a hurt is when your need is not met or taken from you.
Stolen.
You then you steal that need back.
Right. You're trying to get it yourself, for yourself.
Okay, but I want to reiterate the importance of that because, like, we talk about needs that aren't met, but we also, the being taken from you and how you reciprocate that back to the world by stealing from somebody else.
Right.
It's like when you really stop to consider that, that's really transformational. And I just wanted to pause here to reiterate that.
And that's the impetus for stealing the need because it has, especially if it's been taken from you.
Yeah.
It's one thing. It's like it's a slow drip if the need isn't met. But when that need is taken from you,
Yeah.
oh boy, that's a big need right then.
Yeah, and a couple months ago we used the word intentional a lot, and I think this is one of those things where when you start to intentionally look at that in yourself, and you're like, oh man, I just like should I have hugged that person? Is that me trying to steal something or whatever it is? Like it's one of those other layers that as you level up in this understanding of emotional needs, it really starts to turn a lot of the lights on because you see when people are trying to steal it from you. And then you can also see when you're trying to steal it from other people. And those are like signposts for you to identify, hey, I got some work to do here, you know?
Absolutely. And I think, so
Yeah.
moving on, you become obsessive in most ways. That's the number one thing I think with security is it takes over. And in regards to emotional security, we've already touched on these, but I just wanted to refine them a little bit. You know, it's that constant questions, it's the text, whether it be phone calls, it's the constant communication, I guess is maybe the better way to put it.
I feel like this is one that's easy to spot too, just reading through this list that you have, that these things, when they manifest themselves, like as you're listening to this list of constant questions and the next one on the list, you know, smothering kind of over the top behavior toward whoever, like, I think that, I don't know, like if we know somebody like that in our lives, that's one that we can
Easy,
spot.
yeah,
You know what I
easier
mean?
to
We're
identify.
like, ooh, I know somebody
Yeah,
like that.
easier
I
to
can
identify
see
that person, yeah.
Yeah. They're very outward, very visible signs of a need of security.
Well, again, you know, you think of that helicopter mom, you know, the one at the playground, like you were saying, the kid falls, oh my God, you know, and everybody knows about it. That kid is up, you know, in her arms and,
Right.
you know, or the teenager that has no privacy in the room or, you know, this really is there's a visible indication of this particular lack of security.
Yeah. On top of constant communication or questions and smothering, there's manic snooping. And
I love manic snooping.
Manic
I know I'm liking what I wrote,
Yeah.
but it's like snooping. That's okay.
Manic
If
snooping.
you can't stop yourself from snooping,
That's also
then you're manic snooping.
yeah,
good
that's
band
too
name.
much. Manic snooping.
manic snooping.
And it needs for reassurance.
And you think, like, we've all had, I think, or maybe we've been that significant other. You know, are we okay? Is everything okay? And again, Eric, you know, you pointed that sort of, you know, your need for acceptance, but it's what's your motivation? Am I, you know, are you going to break up with me? Not did I screw up?
Right. Like, yeah, because there's times where, like,
Did I screw up is acceptance.
right.
But are you going to leave me? Are you going to abandon me?
Yeah, because and Amy, not to go off on a tangent, but like Amy and I have been in those moments recently where like, are we okay? And we're like, yeah, we're fine, you know, like, but I needed to hear it.
Well, and there's
you know?
there's a healthy balance to that because, you know, when you are in a relationship with somebody, you have to check in with each other.
Yeah.
You know,
And not that I did anything wrong. It's just like, am I meeting your needs right now? Even though like we're going through it, you know,
Right.
with like exterior things, you know, other family or just other events in our life are
Right.
happening, you know, that kind of thing.
but if you're waking up in a, you know, serious relationship every single morning going, good morning, are we okay? Then you come home at night, hey, how was your day at work? Are we okay? You know, that's where it becomes obsessive and manic and yeah.
Then we get into the physical side of things, checking on locks, doors excessively, which we've talked about. More manic obsession with spending and finances. And then a withdrawal from normal activities.
Ooh.
Explain that one.
Well, if you're like, oh, I go to the store. Oh, you know, you don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I could get in an accident. So I'll just have, you know,
I want
DoorDash.
to lock down for 2 weeks.
Or, hey, we're going to go out on a date. Oh, the city's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Locked down for 2 weeks. You know, I know people who only make, including UPS, right-hand turns because left-hand turns are too scary. And so, yeah, apparently, like UPS drivers, they're routing.
That's part of the routing.
That's right.
I know someone, we were just talking about them off mic before the show started.
Who was it?
I cannot. I'm not going to say, but it is like the example was very much a this person, even if they make an initial attempt to do a quote unquote normal activity or schedule a normal sort of event,
happening.
Then they'll self-sabotage.
Yes,
Yeah.
they self-sabotage all the time and come up with reasons why they can't, and they like it's, and there is that, I don't know, some anxiety tinged lack of security.
Lack of security.
Yeah.
A couple other things that I think are ways they steal is, and it goes with that end. It's just a general lack of risk taking, whether it be relationships or finances or career choices or whatever else.
Well, even like when Chris was talking about it's a sense of security of like going out into the physical world and something physical could happen to you. It's also emotional. Like, well, if I don't go, then I'm not going to get hurt.
Yeah.
I
mean, I know people who have had their heart broken 3 times and they're like, well, that's it for me.
3rd time's a charm. I'm
done.
Yeah.
I'd rather be content and alone than risk because their need for security is so high.
Right.
And sort of the cousin to lack of risk is hoarding behavior. And again, hoarding, whether it be finances, whether it be possessions or relationships, that they're the one that's going to go out and be everything to everybody all the time so that they can please everybody. So I'm going to have so many friends and I'm going to have so many this and so many that because I can't, and it just translates many different ways. When one thing we can do in general to meet that need, and we sort of talked about it earlier, but in a more specific way, is to be consistent with people. The more highly volatile we are, if you have somebody in your life who has a high need for security, I guess maybe that's the way we could, how can you meet exactly one person's need for consistency, the closest person to you? It's just to be consistent and to not have the highs and the lows and to overcome transgressions, to overcome conflict and to see it through. And that may be, Rachel was raised in an environment there was yelling, but there wasn't ever conflict because there wasn't enough passion behind the relationships.
Yeah.
So I was the first person she'd ever said sorry to. And so we had to go from there. And it was a whole new thing. So I had to be that, that constant kind of a thing. And to reassure the people in your life that, hey, it's going to be okay. And here's why it's going to be okay. Because if you just say, hey, look, it's going to be fine. Well, that's better than not saying it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But to take the time and say, here's what's going to happen. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then allow them to talk. Allow them to express their needs.
And to go back to what you just said about being consistent, especially with a very significant relationship, like to do that over the long term can be an incredibly costly to you thing, and
it's got to be intentional.
Well, it's got to be intentional. And I go back to love is patient, love is kind, long suffering. I go right to that verse because how else are you as the stable person or the consistent person how do you find that strength? And for me, I really think about that verse and the principles within that verse, because those are going to be the things that sustain you as this other person is trying to find some, security in a relationship where they've never had it before.
Absolutely. I would say in that same vein, it takes a lot to put food on the table. It takes a lot to pay a mortgage. It takes a lot to pay a home equity line of credit.
About to find out.
These are all physical needs. Well, it takes a lot to meet emotional needs. And so we have to have that mindset. And if you've made it an hour into this podcast, you're in the game. And so we appreciate you sitting at the table with us every week. Lastly, as far as meeting that need, it's meeting their needs, doing what they need over and over again, and giving them an opportunity to realize, okay, they're not going to hear you say it's okay. You have to continually prove to them that it is okay.
Yeah, cutting them off at the pass, and locking that door before that person asks, or saying something along the lines of I really appreciate you and I love you, just
let me text you before you text me. I'm leaving this place now.
I had that conversation when Rachel and I were first married, and that leads to one of the best things you can do for your significant other who has a high need for security is know your own emotional needs. Because I had a high need for respect, and so she kept, with Rachel having a high need for security, would call me and call me and call me. And I'm like, what, are you checking up on me?
Right.
And so I finally said to her, I figured it out. This is long before I knew any of this. So if I called you, would you call me less? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, all right. Every time I get in the car, I'll call you. And she was like, that'll be good, which is ironic because I have clearly met that need, because I do not need to do that anymore. I could never call her again, and she wouldn't even know. But in that time, but my point is, knowing my own needs, I was taking it as a taking away from my respect.
Right.
You don't respect me.
You don't trust me?
I got
You
a
know,
job because
yeah.
I was in youth ministry, which isn't a real job according to a lot of people. So you think you can just call me when I'm working? You know, it was so
Yeah.
messy and ugly. So when we are hurt, when our emotional needs are not met, it goes 4 places: anger, fear, guilt, and self-condemnation. Not in that order. So when you do not have, and we've sort of talked about this, but we're just kind of bringing it home. When you do not have your need for security met and your biggest and your hurts go to fear, well, it's pretty obvious. That's when it goes to manic behavior. It'll go to a lockdown. It'll go to,
17 locks on your door.
all those kind of things. 25 checks of your text messages, snooping on your phone, all that kind of stuff. If it goes to guilt, it really ends up with like a lack of intimacy because it's my fault. So you're not going to be open because I'm ashamed, guilt, shame, kind of self-condemnation as well. But it's like, it's my fault. I'm terrible. I'm just going to withdraw. I'm not going to be open. I'm not going to be honest. I'm not going to be vulnerable. It's all my fault. I'm the worst. And it becomes obsessive. And the same sort of, it's very similar with self-condemnation. You're going to withdraw. You're going to isolate from people, from things, that I'm just not worthy of having my needs met. I'm not going to value myself anymore. And it can be really, it's quite depressing, which is where self-condemnation leads.
Or anger.
And then anger,
It's not my fault. It's your fault.
well, it's going to go to rage. I mean, you're just going to be angry at everybody who's ever come close to taking your need for security and then conflate that to those who aren't meeting your need. And you're going to dump on them, the same, if you were raised in a traumatic household, if you were betrayed by people that were supposed to be there for you, and now somebody now they're not taking your need anymore. They're just not meeting your need. So somebody in a new relationship, you're now dating somebody, or say you're married, but your parents were never there for you. And now the first time they don't check in on you, you're getting all that lifetime of anger at their parents being dumped at you. And you're like, what is this all about? So that's sort of a way of wrapping that up. But I mean, we certainly went over the rest of it earlier. The best thing is know your own needs, meet your spouses, your significant other, your children, your coworker. We keep calling it the cheat code, but to understand somebody's emotional needs and then to meet them is going to put you far ahead of everybody else, whether it be relationships or whatever.
All right, and that's how we're going to wrap up our episode number 194 on security. Please make sure to give us a like or follow on social media and visit us at lunchtimeinrome.com. While there, you could take our relational needs questionnaire. Thanks for joining us at the table for Lunchtime in Rome.
See you next week.
Adios.
Goodbye, non-floaters.